All right, chapter 14, part 3, we're back to our discussion about frictional unemployment. And and you can see here that the outcome is to some extent under your control based upon the reservation wage that you set. So if you think very highly of yourself, you have a higher reservation wage, that's going to shift the vertical line here over to the right. And so there will be more jobs that you will toss by the wayside because you think you can do better than that. As the lower bound shifts to the right, the expected wage is going to shift to the right as well. Does that mean that you should increase your reservation wage? Wait a second here. There's a trade-off. The higher reservation wage, the higher your wage upon successful attainment of employment is going to be, but it's clearly going to take you longer because there are fewer jobs available amongst the whole range of jobs in the economy that would be even in the feasible set for you, ones that you would consider earning. So we can say a lot of different things here. One is if WR is set greater than the minimum wage, the probability of unemployment is going to be greater than zero because there'll be a job out there and you will discard it because it's paying too low, all right? Unless you're willing to accept the minimum wage, that would definitely lower unemployment rates, but is that necessarily a good thing? Because it's the trade-off between earning nothing now while you're looking for work versus the present value of the earnings once you find a job, okay? So do you want fewer offers but really grab a great job? I don't know, it just depends within the context of the economy how long you think it's going to take you to find work. Obviously, if you were graduating a year ago, the search time was pretty darn low, and having a higher reservation wage and therefore a higher expected level of wage upon employment made a lot of sense. Right now, there's a lot of unknown, to say the least, okay? But this would help explain, for example, why two students with really very similar skill sets may end up at very different wages. Look, you can get lucky and right away find a very high-paying job. You may be searching a long time and the wages are either ones you're going to throw out or ones that are below what you expect your wage is going to be. Okay, it really just depends on the circumstances there. Obviously, to the extent you can conduct an efficient job search, that should lower the amount of time for you to grab one that's at least a WR, but you're not expecting you're going to get an offer right there. It could be all the way up here, and that's why the expected value is here. So even though you're willing to work for, let's say, 20 an hour, the top here is, let's say, 40 an hour, and when we average it, it may be $28 an hour. You may get a $21 an offer. You may get a $35 an offer. But if you play this game over and over and over again, you're going to get a $28 offer right there, expectation of W. Okay. Now, talking about frictional job search, where does unemployment insurance come in? Unemployment insurance, as you know, has been a pretty hot topic now. It came up in the Wall Street Journal, obviously, on our last exam, because there are not only benefits by state that are available if you qualify. You have to have a history of earnings. You can't just say, I don't have a job, pay me. You have to have a history of earnings because based on that history of earnings, your employer gets taxed on the first $7,000 of earnings in the state of California, and that becomes the money that goes into the pool that then pays those people who are out of work. As you know, Congress has sweetened the pot by adding $600 a week to the end of July for people who are unemployed. And I just read today in the LA Times that, in fact, you could be partially unemployed, meaning at a reduction in hours, and be eligible for some more modest amount of unemployment benefits and still get the full $600 a week. So the incentives associated with that are very bizarre, to say the least. Now, unemployment insurance is designed to be a cushion so that you're not destitute the moment you lose a job. But because you have this cushion, it gives you a a basis for undertaking a longer job search. And the longer job search may lead to a couple of things. Number one, setting a higher reservation wage, because now it's not as urgent for you to find a job and gives you more time to find a closer match, okay? Now, in California, the unemployment insurance benefit varies. The minimum amount is $40 a week. The maximum amount is $450 a week. That's totally different than if you become disabled and you're employed in the state. I think the highest benefit is something like $1,300 a week if you get hurt on the job. It depends on your level of earnings. The top benefit is only $450 a week, which is what, like $23,000 a year if you're unemployed in California. Okay, we are not the most lucrative state by any means in regards to that. But right now, let's say you're eligible for the maximum and you get the government benefit of $600, that's $1,050 a week, which is actually higher than many people are currently earning, which is, again, the perverse effect of a well-intentioned policy. So unemployment benefits, giving you a cushion, makes it less urgent for you to grab the first job that's there, enables you to undertake a longer job search, and maybe get a better match between the jobs that are available and the ones that you are qualified to do. So what is the effect of higher unemployment benefits? This is what the studies seem to show. Number one, every 10% increase in what we call the replacement rate, and that is replacing your earnings. So let's say you're making $700 a week. A 10% increase in the replacement rate would be an increase of $70 a week in unemployment benefits, 70 over the 700 you normally make, would lead to a 1 week increase in unemployment duration. So the bigger the benefits, the longer people are going to be out of work. Is this unequivocally a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing, because even though the unemployment rate is going to be a little higher, upon completion of the stint of unemployment, things are going to be better because you're going to line up a more desirable job, okay? Now, does unemployment insurance lead to better matches? The evidence is not super strong on that. Theory would say that it would, because it gives you more time to search. Now, let me go back for 1 second to the COVID-19 $600 a week benefit. That's a tough one, because since the benefit doesn't run out until the end of July, what I would expect to see are a lot of people waiting until maybe June to start looking for work, because they may be looking for a job that's going to pay them less than they're making between unemployment and the $600 a week bump and the state unemployment benefit. And so they really don't want to find a job until the end of July. So we'll see what happens. Okay. The next category of unemployment, again, this is stuff you should be familiar with, at least broadly, from your studies of economics before, is structural unemployment. There's a change in the structure of the economy. What industries are in growth phase, which industries are in decline, which industries go away entirely. If you want to look at structural unemployment in the economy now, department stores, okay? If you're trained to be a department store manager, this is not a job where your prospects are particularly good looking forward, because not only in the short term, because of the lockdown, department stores are not open. I mean, they're just basically just servicing their online clientele. But long term, JCPenney's will go bankrupt and probably will go out of business. Right now, Macy's is hurting tremendously. Nordstrom, Kohl's also hurting. And the basic model of the big box department store is probably going to be something that's going to end up in the history books. So that's an example of structural unemployment. But on the other hand, if you have good internet skills, computer skills, of course, those are in ascent. So obviously, occupational differences and geographic mobility come into play here. You can't costlessly retrain for a new occupation. So there may be economic hurdles. There may be the inability of people to borrow funds to be able to take training. This is where vocational training in the junior colleges and for-profit colleges sometimes becomes very, very valuable, more so than educating students in the liberal arts and the like, in terms of simply lining them up for a job. It may be the case that you've got a worker who's older and they just, it may not be worth retraining because they're not going to have very many years to recoup the investment. Go back to chapter 9 and the material on education and start the horizontal axis at age 50 instead of 18. And you can see that you've got a much shorter period of time to reap the benefits of any sort of educational investment, which includes retraining. All of those factors need to be considered, plus the factor that it's not costless to move to regions of the country that are doing very well, which more recently have been the western parts of the United States, Texas, Florida, the Research Triangle area, North Carolina, Arizona, state of Washington, high-tech regions that are doing well. Industrially based areas of the country have done a little better the last few years, but historically have been in a downward trend. While I lived in upstate New York, definitely in a downward trend with regards to all of that. So everything that came into play with regards to migration in Chapter 10 just gets magnified here in terms of moving now because you lost your job and now you're looking for a job opportunity somewhere else. Okay. All right, we'll continue our discussion in part 4.